I can honestly say I hated Queen and everything that they did. To have rehashed that and reheated for a second time around is pretty weird. So, no, I don't like them at all. I think they're a comedy band. Those are the words of the Cure frontman and goth king Robert Smith talking about glam rock offering the darkness following their release of their debut album Permission to Land in 2003. While the airwaves and festivals may have been dominated by I Believe in a Thing Called Love, Growing on Me, and Love is Only a Feeling, Robert Smith might have just had a point though, because for all Justin Hawkins sang about on the anti-penultimate song of their debut album about spending the rest of the week cycling, gymnastics, bridge club and archery, we all know that Friday nights are all about the Scottish Championship rather than dancing, and it is laughable to suggest otherwise. It's Fife Derby time. We're back for the Oh No 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 podcast with a look ahead from the mob along the road. I'm your host this evening, Robbie Weir, and joining me for this pre-match preview, I've got firstly Carol Smith. How you doing, Carol?
I'm all right. It's good to be back. It feels like ages since I've been on.
It has. It's definitely been a wee minute since you've been on, and of course we've got Scott Fleming returning again. How you doing, Scott?
Yeah, really good, Robbie. Obviously, you always get the sort of excitement and also a wee bit of nerves, I suppose, coming into a derby week because you're just hoping to make sure that we can get another one over them. But no, I'm looking forward to it. It should be. It's got more intrigue, I think, this year. The fact who's in charge at Dunfermline since we last played them as well. So, no, looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think their fans have been a bit more giddy this time with excitement about the prospect of actually coming and I feel like the 2 wins last season were maybe a bit unexpected compared to before. So we'll see how this goes. Just firstly, before we go any further, though, just looking across the Scottish Championship, and we've had our first departure, Scott. Rhys McCabe leaving from Airdrie, somewhat unexpectedly. What did you make of that news?
Yeah, it is surprising, but at the same time, there's been a rumour for a while that he feels that he's not been getting backed, or especially since the whole link up with Jackie McNamara's company, that they were getting players from them over the last few seasons, and that's now stopped. So I think, and to be fair, I kind of get it in terms of I think he's done more than enough for Airdrie in the last 4 seasons that he's been in charge. Basically, that he's got them up into the championship. He then got them into the playoffs, which was a massive overachievement for Airdrie, really, just being back in the championship. And then he managed to keep them in the league the season after. I think for Airdrie, if they can stay in the league most seasons, I think they should be happy in the championship. So I think he's done a pretty good job. And I mean, the fact that we could never beat them, really, was really annoying. So I suppose from that front, I'm kind of glad that he is gone. But yeah, as I say, I'm not overly surprised purely at the fact that I did think that he was starting to get pretty frustrated, and you could see it, especially just the way that he was kind of coming across with his sort of business or lack of business, and how he was coming out. Anytime he was asked about stuff like that, he was going on about saying, "Oh, yeah, well, we need players, but I'm not able to get them just now," or whatever. So. But in terms of the timing, yeah, I suppose you could want better timing than right at the start of the season, but we also seen that last season, so it'll be interesting to see who they go after. Obviously, the bookies are seeming to think that Ian Murray could be making a return there, which would be interesting to see. I also think it would be quite a sensible appointment by Airdrie to do that, but I've also seen Ian McCall's names been linked as well, so yeah, I'm also intrigued to see who ends up there on the full-time basis.
Yeah, I mean, Carol, that was going to be our next point for you. Potentially Ian Murray return on the cards, maybe, or even James McPake being linked as well. I think Stuart Taylor, who was previously at Hamilton, he's been mentioned in dispatches as well. I mean, do you really opportunity for Ian Murray potentially to get back into the game there? Would you be quite happy to see that?
I agree with Scott. It'd be a logical move, I think, for Airdrie, and a sensible move for both parties, I think. It's Ian Murray getting back into football, into a club that he knows, and also Airdrie getting a manager that we have to admit he was a good manager for us at times. So yeah, I think it would be a sensible appointment.
Yeah, 100%. Aside from that, I mean, the only other thing that's really been happening in the Scottish Championship was Ayr United putting out video pleas of asking for their fans to stop abusing them, which is, again, it raises that question. Depends upon the context of what has been put. I think it's sometimes with these things they can become very personal, but it did seem a bit of a strange statement that they came out with that video, and a lot of it, like we were chatting about it today in our group chat, and the headline from it's basically like, we received some personal abuse, this is unacceptable, back and forth. But then they're going on about like, and some good news about like the club development and things. Just seemed a really strange statement to come out with initially. But generally a pretty quiet week in the Championship. So turn attention, we're obviously first up on Friday, so it's very much a case that the winner goes top of the league for at least one day, up until 3 p.m. when St Johnstone play on the Saturday. Carol, a lot of deliberation in the summer, but a return for Neil Lennon back to Dunfermline. I sort of bided his time and waited, and then he decided, yeah, I'm going to be the man to take them forward. Not really much of a shock for you that he's back in?
No, because it's, how else does he put himself in the shop window, really? I mean, because this is a stepping stone to a bigger club. He's not going to stay at Dunfermline. If he's successful, come Christmas and someone is looking, he would be a good choice. So yeah, it's good for both parties at the moment. But yeah, how else do you get seen if you're not in the window?
Yeah, it's when Neil Lennon, manager that seems to, he's just one where Dunfermline seem to have had a lot of credit in the summer, and he's seen as the sort of man that's going to be stabilising force. I know that I've listened to other sort of podcasts, and they've pointed to the fact that Neil Lennon historically has always done well when he's been given the backing, but it's how far the backing's going to go this time and where Dunfermline really go in terms of their business. I mean, there was a lot of speculation, a lot of it, to be fair, coming from our side and from other fans outside of Dunfermline, sort of suggesting, bandying about names in the summer about who they might sign, and it was going as wild as the likes of Stuart Armstrong, Stephen Fletcher. They had a protracted saga trying to entice Dylan Easton along the road, but he turned them down, which was great fun. But yeah, initially quite quiet. Scott brought in Charlie Gilmore, Shea Kearney came over from Ireland, Keith Bray and Mason Munn, so a good few young players, but then also sort of marquee signing came over from one of James Board's, his Bulgarian team, Alphonse Amade. So what have you made of the sort of early summer business so far, excluding the ones maybe last week that we saw, that we'll talk about in a bit of further detail?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, I would say until recently, their business was very low key in terms of the signings we were expecting them to make. As you say, there was some massive names linked with them just because everyone was like, well, Dunfermline have been saying that they've got all this money now and that they're going to throw it around because they want to try and go for the league. But I wasn't really seeing it from the signings that they were making, if I'm being like totally honest. I mean, I think the young lad Keith Bray is probably going to turn out to be a decent pro in Scotland, but to what level, I don't know. He's still a teenager as well, so there's plenty of time for him to still adapt. You said about the guy coming over, the boy Alphonse Amade. I've not seen much of him, so I can't really comment. I've spoke to a mate of mine who is a Pars fan, and he said that he does look decent, but yeah, he still has got plenty to kind of learn in terms of Scottish football, how Lennon wants to play, that sort of thing. So I think he might turn out to be a pretty good player in a few months' time once he's kind of more settled into the Scottish Championship. And then obviously you've got the likes of, they've went and got Mason Munn in for Rangers because, I mean, they needed to get a better goalie than Dennis Mehmet to have any chance of doing anything in the Championship this season. So I think that was sensible enough from Neil Lennon. I think it's also not too far away from saying that Neil Lennon clearly took the job because he's going to be get on a pretty penny. I think everybody knows that. He's not going to be in the Championship just because, he wants to be. Like, no matter how much Dunfermline fans want that to be the case, no, that is not the case.
He's not doing it for the love, I think we can say.
He's purely doing it for the fact that he's been given a decent contract and he's been given a pretty penny for it. So I think it's fair to say that if it doesn't go well by January, February time, that it's not going to plan, and as you say, maybe there's a job that Neil Lennon thinks that he could go and get elsewhere. I could actually see that happening, but we'll see how it sort of unfolds as the season goes. But yeah, I was fairly surprised at the lack of bigger names, put it that way, with our business up until fairly recently, anyway.
Yeah, Carol, the last week for Dunfermline has been a bit of a whirlwind, shall we say. So, firstly, what's your knowledge of Peruvian top-tier football, AI-driven transfers, and Sheffield United's love of a work permit issue because they signed Jefferson Cáceres. I think he's been capped for Peru. I need to double check that one. But basically, he'd initially signed for Sheffield United. James Ward, who and Evan Sofer's data company, they were advising Sheffield United of their transfers. I believe might have been last year or during the winter last window. Signing Jefferson Cáceres, doesn't play a game for Sheffield United due to the work permit situation. So they've taken him on, put in a bid, and he's moved for an undisclosed fee. I believe he was previously sold for £1 million over to Sheffield United. So what do you make of that whirlwind of a transfer and everything that's going on there? Just file it into the bookmarks for the Scottish football banter.
Yes, just a lot of words that should not be involved in football. A lot of things that shouldn't be involved in Scottish football. Peruvian football, I mean, I know the national team and it's all right. I've got a lot of Peruvians in my neighbourhood. They are very passionate about their football, but that's it. It just. I mean, I understand that football is a statistics game and a data game and everything, but yeah, I wouldn't take the risk. It's an expensive risk.
Yeah, I'm just looking there at his Wikipedia, and he's been capped for their under 23s. So, yeah, you might need to, if you can put your pals in contact with Liam, that might be beneficial in terms of the scouting. Albeit with Liam, he was saying that he was watching second tier games in Ecuador and Argentina before, so he knows a lot more about this stuff than we do. Let's put it that way. And then Scott as well. While there was a lot of talk about that transfer because naturally it's an eye-catching move. It comes very much from the sort of early 2000s school of sort of Claudio Caniggia just rocking up at Dundee out of the wilderness. Robbie Fraser signs from Rangers, initially been sort of touted as potentially being, I think a lot of people thought it was going to be a loan move, but he's actually made a permanent transfer to Dunfermline on a 3-year deal. Flying a bit under the radar with that one, do you think? What did you make of the move?
Yeah, he seemed to do all right at Livy anyway last season. I mean, obviously they went and got promoted, so he was part of that team, but I don't remember him really standing out too much against us in any of the games that he played, but he knows the level. He's been part of a successful team, so I can see why Lennon and Dunfermline have went and got him. I was a wee bit surprised that they did go and get him on a 3-year deal. I think I've seen some of our fans anyway saying like, oh, that's not very good of Rangers to be giving out players like that. But then I think they then realise, oh, it's actually a permanent transfer and not just a loan deal. Because obviously they've already loaned out Mason Munn.
He's 22 anyway, so he wouldn't have been eligible for any sort of cooperation.
Exactly. So, but no, I think it'll be a sensible move, as I say, from them. But at the same time, I mean, it could come back to bite. I don't expect somebody like Robbie Fraser to be the star player for Dunfermline. I'm fully expecting the best players to still be this season. Your likes of Ewan Otto. I'm expecting guys like Josh Cooper, Connor Young, these guys who are still fairly young, who showed signs at lower leagues and also in spurts last season, these sort of guys to kind of kick on a bit, because it's going to be a big season for them if they're any sort of wish to play at a higher level than Dunfermline or the Championship. So I think it's going to be a big season for them. Guys like Oakley Booth as well, who came in with a very sort of strange pedigree of, he was brilliant in youth football and then doesn't seem to have done much since then, and then has rocked up at Dunfermline last season on loan. I didn't really see much in him at all, and yeah, I was kind of glad when they announced him very early in the summer as a sort of permanent transfer, because I did not see why they would want him on a full-time basis. So if that's who they want to put in the midfield, feel free to do so. And then, yeah, you obviously got the boy Cáceres, who's just an unknown quantity for us. Like, he could turn out to be an absolute world beater in the Championship, or he could turn out to be an absolute dud. So we'll find out, I suppose, on Friday if he does feature, to see how good or how shit he is, to be honest.
Yeah, with the business that Dunfermline have done, kind of almost reminds me of Falkirk and when they were in League One, McGlynn's second season, when they brought in the likes of Spencer, Lang, Calvin Miller, Aidan Nisbet, etc. I think when you look at a lot of the players they've brought in, I mean, Charlie Gilmore's came in, and I think he's been a steady and influence in sort of the heart of midfield. He's going to be an upgrade on Joe Chalmers in terms of what he brings to the table. It added a bit of width into their team. I know that Aaron Comrie had been at Dunfermline and he did a good turn for them, but like just to offer them something different. They've obviously signed Keith Bray, but I don't think he's had too many games for them as such so far. But it's the type of ones where you can build your team around it. And even seeing the moves that they are making, they do seem to be sort of getting a bit more bold in terms of their transfer business. I know the Courier's sort of making them out, and I don't know how much this is, that Eric Nicholson's basically being like a propaganda wing for St Johnstone at the Courier, because they're talking about Dunfermline making bids of £500,000 for Mackenzie Kirk, and try to compete with these teams down south in England. Now, Mackenzie Kirk is a good centre forward, but I don't know how much it's getting. It's one of those ones where maybe Eric Nicholson's just embellishing it to try and sort of say, this is really good for St Johnstone that we're battering away these bids of stupid amounts of money from a team in our division. We're refusing to sell. Because they did exactly the same when Sam Stanton left us. They put out an article basically saying Sam Stanton could have gone to Ross County, but he chose to go to St Johnstone because he had offers from both. And I suspect it's probably more the logistics of the move that was a big factor then. Again, we don't know, but he's obviously very trustworthy with what he says about when it comes to St Johnstone, but also at the same time, you do have to kind of wonder, is he maybe just adding a wee bit extra to sort of beef it up for their fans?
Yeah, it also doesn't actually really match up with what Dunfermline are wanting, because as far as I've been made aware of from, as I say, one of my mates that's a Palace fan, he's saying that Lennon and the club have been actually trying to go and get more experience in the team, because they've only really got Benny and Otto's got a bit of experience now, obviously been there for a few seasons, and then the likes of Chris Hamilton. Outside of that, they're all really young players, so yeah. It would be a surprise. Like, I'm not saying that Mackenzie Kirk's not a good player. Like, I think he's got talent and he clearly is going to have a decent career, but I do think that if that's the case, I don't understand the signing, because like they've been going on about saying, no, we need to get some experience into this team because we can't just run with all these young lads, because I mean at some point they're going to need guys to guide them in games where, like, I think Benedictus, although he's probably on the decline now in his career, he's going to have to be like a massive figurehead in that changing room for them this season, because there's going to be games that they're going to be sort of, it's no going their way and they're going to need to turn the tide at some point. It's guys like him that are going to need to step up and get a grip of them, because like I don't know too many young lads that usually just go and take the scruff of the neck game and just go and win them games. So there might be a few in there that do that this season. You never know, because young guys also can hit like purple patches and prove people wrong. But I do think that they're going to need to get some experience in that squad before the end of the window if they've got any sort of hope of making the top four this season.
Yeah, I mean, the main one that strikes out for me in terms of experience is Chris Kane, and nobody really knows what's going on in terms of his injury picture at the moment. He's, again, since he signed for Dunfermline, he's been in and out the team with them for injuries. When he does play, he's a go for it. Always seems to be in and around the goals and getting on the score sheet for them. But then Carroll as well, to take it back to the youth side of things, obviously Dunfermline had a lot of emphasis in terms of their youth academy. I know I think the boy, Lucas Fife, they brought him on against for the end of the game against Airdrie, but mostly the plaudits are going to the sons of Todd. So the two Todd brothers. Do you think that's quite commendable that Dunfermline have been able to sort of utilise those youth aspects and just again, it's that discrepancy between ourselves. I think the Courier, Ian Collins, was suggesting we've actually got the oldest average squad in the SPFL. So big discrepancy there in terms of the teams.
It is. I mean, and hats off to them. I mean, it is developing your own players is a great business model and a great sport model. It works occasionally, but she says, but wow, I didn't know that we had the oldest squad. That is. But then when you say footballers are old, it's like someone's old at 28, which is not old. It's not old. So yeah, I think it is going to be interesting.
Yeah, it's a bit different to maybe compared to before. I think sort of you saw players going into their 30s, and it was very much like okay, maybe I got 2 or 3 years left.
Yeah.
Whereas now players can play into like their late 30s if they really want to, given the sort of changes in terms of how players look after themselves, nutrition.
If you can stay
sort of
injury free, if you've got good rehab, there's a lot more focus on keeping players fit and healthy rather than breaking them before they're 30. So I think going to go back to what Scott said is that they don't have that solid old head on the pitch, which could come back to bite them in the ass. Because, if I don't associate a young team going 2-0 behind being able to go, right, we need to get this. A young team, when they go 2-0 down, usually it's heads down and it's really hard to pick them up, whereas an older team they know they've done it all before.
I mean, the thing for me is that a lot of that Dunfermline team have gone through some more difficult experiences already. I mean, naturally, I think with the two Todd brothers, because they're going to be, I mean, I'm going to guess they're dyed-in-the-wool Dunfermline fans. I know their dad had a wee spell with Rovers, but let's guess that they're obviously going to be up for it because they're going to be wanting to prove a point. They're obviously potentially getting tipped for bigger moves, whether it's going to be winter or next summer. You would expect if they had good seasons, they'll kick on. But then across the team, you look at the lads at Kirkcaldy, they've obviously, I mean, there's 3 of them now in the fact that you've got Bray, Chillicoe, Mullen and Gilmore, who've all been in relegation battles before, across the whole piece. So,
and got relegated.
Aye. Well, that's
so they weren't successful in it.
But even still, it's the type of thing that they know how much is at stake with these sorts of things. I think it's quite easy to paint players as being sort of fresh-faced and blue-eyed and going to be wandering about like lost wee lambs. Don't think that's going to be the case. I know that wasn't really your point, but I think that, there's going to be a bit more to it than potentially that some people might expect with these guys. And just for you, Scott, do you think maybe Dunfermline, would it be fair to say that, from my viewpoint, I think that they're probably the hardest team to figure out in terms of prospects-wise for the league? A lot of people have tipped them to be within the top 4, but also at the same time, you're kind of wondering, what's really your basis for that? Whereabout have you got Dunfermline in terms of their overall position? This is potential for bookmarking, etc., left, right and centre, but what are your thoughts just in terms of where they're at the moment? Because they've had they've had an identical start in terms of the league, barring 1 goal more than us. When you listen to their fans talking about it, they obviously drew on opening day against Morton, I believe, and then they beat Airdrie 2-0. So what are your sort of thoughts on them? Do you think we're really to sort of see the best or potentially the worst from them?
Yeah, I would agree that they are probably this year anyway, the toughest to try and put down a position where they're going to finish, because they've got all these young lads who, as I say, they could turn out to have a great season and be brilliant, and then sell them on or whatever. But they could easily also kind of go into their shell and no really fill out their sort of potential. But yeah, for that reason, I can't really. I think I did like a sort of 1 to 10 just on a notes page, just on my phone, just to kind of work out where I think everybody's going to finish. And I think I had them 5th or 6th, but like it was like could easily be top 4, could easily be 7th, 8th as well. Like it really, after, as I say, I mean, Ayr right now, I know they're going through a lot of injury problems and stuff, but they before the season, everybody had them down as 3rd. They were going to be 3rd. I think people were still 34 games to go. It's still a long way to go. If they get their guys back for injuries, they could go on a run, start scoring goals freely again. You never know. But Dunfermline, on the other hand, I don't see. I think they're going to be a tougher team to beat this season. I think Lennon's definitely shown in that time last season, but also in the sort of pre-season coming into the Premier Sports Cup and in the first 2 league games that he's clearly made them tougher to score against and tougher to beat. Which, I mean, to be fair, I don't think it would have been too difficult to improve on McPake and Tidser's record in terms of conceding goals, because they two just couldn't get a tune out of them at all. But yeah, I do think that they are going to be probably mid-table, but I also wouldn't be shocked if they did string together like parts of good form throughout the season and finished like 4th. That wouldn't surprise me either.
Yeah, the main thing I think for Dunfermline is getting them back on the goal trail. I know a lot of that's down to you expect to see sort of how Chris Kane does first as to his injury situation, but they've clearly got the back in there as to be able to bring in another forward. And I think the question is like who they actually get. How far does that extend in terms of what they can potentially bring to the table and what they can offer? Because I could, again, we've seen it before with clubs where it just makes a huge difference in terms of your league position, where you end up, where teams in particular, and I know that it's cliched to say, but Partick Thistle with Brian Graham, where everything seemed to go through him. Even over the last few years, you look at the likes of Kevin Nisbet, just coming there. It wouldn't surprise me, actually. I know that there's been sort of speculation about Dundee potentially going for a move for him. It wouldn't surprise me if they actually went in and even tried to get Josh Fowler off of Queen's Park, because he started the season really, really well, and he kind of meets the sort of the ethos of what Dunfermline are bringing to the table. But whether Queen's Park would actually sell him to a team in their league, very, very different question. But yeah, that's enough about Dunfermline, covering off our sort of standard opposition preview that we do. So let's turn and focus on the Rovers now. A bit of a changing of the guard, Scott. We saw Robbie Thompson departs. He's moved on to Falkirk to take up their head of goalkeeping coaching, being replaced by Callum Erskine, who's came in the door from Falkirk, funnily enough, I believe. What did you make of that change? Bit of a surprise one during the week.
Yeah, it was definitely a surprise to see Robbie leave. Obviously, I think he done a good job firstly as a player when he was with us, and then gone on to do his coaching stuff. As far as I'm led to believe, he's a very, very talented coach in terms of he's got his own goalkeeping school, and he's also just done really well with a lot of the young lads through the Rovers as well. So I hope he goes on and does even better than in terms of being with Falkirk and goes to either a decent club down south or even a bigger club in Scotland, because I think Robbie's clearly got what it takes to be a good goalkeeping coach. So yeah, I'll be. I wouldn't go as far as like say I'm gutted or anything he's gone, because at the end of the day, like he was there involved in the coaching staff, but he wasn't like one of the guys that was like, oh, if we lose him, season's over. Like it's. I know that there were some people were a bit like, oh, well, why is he doing that and questioning it, but I don't think it's going to be as big an issue as anybody would imagine, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, fair play to the guy. He's got his move. up to a team in the top flight, and I'd imagine that'll take on quite a bit of responsibility as well with their academy that they've just brought back. So it wouldn't surprise me if he's got some involvement with that. And then on top as well, I don't know if he still stays in Falkirk. I think he used to stay there before. I'm not sure if he still does, but obviously that's going to save him a fair amount of time as well. Yeah, so just to turn our attention to the game itself, 1 win, 1 draw apiece in terms of the league table going into this so far, Carol. Do you think with the game itself, big difference potentially starting on the front foot? How big do you think it is to be able to go into this one and start the game positively itself?
I think the first 20 minutes are going to be key. It's Friday night, it's under the lights, it's on the telly, was it over 4,000 tickets have been sold? Last time I checked social media, I can't remember the number off the top of my head. It's going to be an amazing atmosphere, but I think if we've not turned it on in the first 20 minutes, it's going to be a struggle, and we need to score in the first 20 minutes. So it's all on the first 20 for me.
I don't know if I'd go so far as the scoring part. I think that we've got a resolute team. I would stick with them even past that. But yeah, I think that you could put a lot of pressure on either team, depending on where the first goal goes and how quickly it goes in. We did have the game against Queen's Park where we gave away the penalty early doors and then we bounced back from that. So we've shown already a bit of resilience. And then by the opposite side, we hung on for... Well, not hung on. That's probably a disservice to the team. But like the game against Ayr, we take a lead within the first minute, and then for 89 minutes we keep a clean sheet. So we've shown a feel so far. For all the League Cup didn't go to plan, there is a sort of resoluteness about the team within the league. We are on a very good run of form at the moment, which is something that we all want to extend, and hopefully we can continue that on. Just off the pitch though, Scott, with the whole transfer picture, we've not seen any movement. There's not been any rumours as such. Are you worried that Rangers might try a cooperation loan in for one of our players, given their result last night and the bodying that they took off Club Brugge? But more seriously, are you frustrated? Or are you just quite accepting, just of being patient? And I know that the club have sort of preached that before about just we're waiting for the right player to come up. So where are you at with the whole transfer situation?
Yeah, I've kind of not really changed my stance on what I think that we need or that I would like to come into the club before the end of the window. I still think we're a centre-half short and potentially another striker short as well. I know that there has been rumours that, like in previous weeks, that we're potentially going to look into getting another midfielder in the door as well. That I'm not as bothered about. It's more centre half and striker that I'm looking at. I understand that. I mean, we're talking about strikers a lot of the time. I think there's loads of clubs in Scotland that are looking at strikers constantly, or looking for strikers that they can bring in that are going to do a job. And so there's clearly just no that many quality strikers out there that are available. So I think Robson's had to really dig deep with a scouting team to try and find somebody. So hopefully somebody can come out within that soon. And then same with centre half, because the fear is with the way that Barry Robson wants to play, and he's insisting on playing this back three, back five system. He needs to bring in another centre half if he's going to play that, because you can't rely on these three just being fit all the time. Even if they do stay fit, I mean, it's probably going to be unlikely that not one of them is going to be suspended at some point, either through 5 bookings or through getting a red card at some point during the season. I think that's going to happen at some point, so we definitely need to bring in somebody. I've also said that it probably needs to be somebody ideally that's maybe mid to early 20s that's going to accept being sort of a squad player, being in and out of the team, but also will learn off guys like Fordyce and Hanlon, because these guys have been in Scottish football for years now and have played at all sorts of levels. So I think if we can get somebody younger at centre half that's a bit sort of pacier as well, because that's something else that worries me, is that any ball over the top I get a bit worried that we're going to get outdone with pace all the time, and that you're then relying on the communication being very good with the defence and the keeper, but also that Josh Ray might need to come and bail out his back three at times to try and just clear the ball as well. So, I'm kind of on the most important for me is a centre-half, then a striker, I would say.
Yeah, I'd be fully there with you on that one. I think that with it, I mean, we've got J Rowe obviously on the bench. We know him more in terms of being a wing back, whether he's got the ability to come in and play centrally, up for speculation as to whether adjust into that position. But really a case where if we do move forward, because we've got the way that we're playing at the moment, and the utilisation of the likes of Paul McMullen and Dylan Easton up top to go. You've potentially got a Lewis Vaughan or Jack Hamilton to come in there. It's a bit more of a dynamic position, whereas with your centre backs, you're kind of like, right, okay, we've got Scott Brown that we could put in there, but nobody's we've not done that for a couple of years, and we don't really want to start going back to
not again.
Particularly not against our local rivals in a derby. Obviously, hoping that everyone's fit for this one. But yeah, just speaking of J Rowe, Carol, where would you stand on this one for the derby? Because J Rowe came out against Dale United. He wasn't in the starting 11. We played Josh Mullen. Would you be sticking with Josh Mullen for this one, or would you be looking for that a bit more of an aggressive presence, maybe try to push Dunfermline back using J Rowe?
I've been contemplating the lineup before the podcast, doing my notes, etc. I've been a good student. And I was like, who do you drop? Because I think with the way the league's set up, you've only really got the element of surprise for the first quarter of the season. Because after that, it's pretty predictable because everyone's got limited squads. So do you stick with what worked against Ayr, or do you drop J Rowe in to be a little bit snippier, a little bit faster? I think my response to that is I don't know. I'm 50-50. I don't think that helps the situation.
That's a fencer sat on, Carol, if you're wondering. But no, it's a tough call to make. Barry Robson will obviously know where he's going to go with it, but I don't think any of us, in terms of the fans, will be too particularly sure where that's going to fall down.
And I don't think I'll be surprised either way or disappointed either way.
Yeah,
I think that's what makes it difficult, is that there's nothing to put you in favour of one or the other. That both would be a good choice for whatever setup it is.
Definitely justification, because as well with Jay, he's got such a good aerial threat, and we've seen that already. 2 goals from fullback. I don't think we had that from either of our sort of fullbacks last season across the East, largely probably because we ended the season with admittedly Josh Mullen playing wing back, and the rest of our wing backs disappeared over the course of the season. Scott, for you, just in terms of the midfield, central midfield, he did change it up, went with the free sort of. He's just sort of told Scott Brown and Ross Matthews, right, in you go, but also we'll put in Sean Byrne there, not Scott Byrne, to be able to do a turn for us. Is that something that you can see changing going into this game? Do you think Barry Robson would maybe stick with that? What's your prediction for this?
Yeah, it's a difficult one, what I think Robson's going to do with it, because he seems to be using Sean Byrne really sparingly. I mean, he's only used them in the Inverness Cup game, and then obviously Ayr away in terms of from the start and getting decent minutes. So I'm really not sure if he is likely to start him again in this one. I think the midfield battle is going to be key. I mean, I think that in a lot of derby games, to be fair, you want to be winning that sort of middle of the park battle, because that's where you then are likely to go and sort of progress into the final third and try and create your chances from in there. But I also think that if we've got any sort of, I don't know, chance of winning the game or to be dominating the game, I think we need Sean Byrne in there, because he's the one that can nick the ball off Dunfermline when they're coming at us on the counter or whatever, but he also protects that back 3, back 5, whatever, so well, and just patrols it brilliantly. So I fear going into a wee bit if it is back to Matthews and Brown, because I just think they're far too similar to be playing. When we say it all the time, it feels like we're just repeating ourselves constantly. They are far too similar for our liking, I think. in terms of playing them together. And I do think that if we were to go in just with A2 and put Byrne back on the bench, I would be a little bit worried that we might get overrun in midfield and we might be, well, maybe not necessarily overrun because they two certainly do a lot of running, but they might be just in terms of all over the place and they might be able to find these pockets of spaces in behind us in the middle of the park, which, yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter what sort of football you are. If you've got plenty of space and time on the ball, you're going to look a half-decent footballer at this level. So I think I would definitely be looking at playing Byrne again. And then I know you've touched on the fullback situation, and it would probably be quite tough on Josh Mullen to lose his place. As you say, I think with the aerial sort of threat, I almost would look at going back to J. Rowe for this game. I think he would give us a lot more pace down that sort of side as well. Although I don't think that Josh Mullen necessarily deserves to be dropped because I thought he had a really good, solid game down at Ayr, and he gives you a very good set-piece delivery as well.
Yeah, absolutely. To take it back to the midfield, I think with the games in the League Cup in particular, you really sort of saw we need to keep those in mind for like the space that was sort of exposed in the middle of the park. I mean, we saw it particularly the first three games, less so against obviously Inverness, where we went into a really comfortable lead. Maybe a couple of points during the Queen's Park game where it was the case, where there was that bit of exposure, but yeah, it's a very tough call. But also as well, it's hard to pinpoint where Dunfermline will feel that they're going to be successful, whether it's going to be going down the wings and being able to utilise it. Again, we know absolutely nothing about Cáceres in terms of what he brings to the table, but they do have, again, other players like Kane Ritchie-Hosler that we know what he's about. We've seen before, obviously, the likes of Fraser and Gwenya, depending on if he plays, being able to get forward. So there is sort of real mix in there, because if you take the likes of Gilmore and Amadi, they can obviously press with the wall, be able to be a bit more aggressive, try to come forward. So it's hard to sort of see where the lineups are going to meet and where the key battles are even beforehand. Because
I almost, just on the final touch in the midfield, sort of, I'm inclined to say that the three might work better as well. With if you're pushing one, I mean, Ross Matthews was the one that kind of was pushed on further in the first half anyway to sort of try and upset the sort of the defence at Ayr and try and hurry them a bit. Whether you go and do that again against Dunfermline, because we've seen very early on this season that Dunfermline's centre halves like to go walkabout with the ball. I mean, both John Todd and even Chillico and Mullen, they both like to be, from what I've seen of them anyway, I know it's very little, but what I've seen of them, they both like to be footballers at first. So they like to be running with the ball, passing, moving, all that sort of stuff. So it wouldn't surprise me if we try to really put a press on them and actually force them to try. Because, I mean, if they beat our press, then they're through. I mean, that's the whole thing with Barry Robson's style. If you beat our press, there's a fair chance you're getting a half-decent chance out of this, because we're then kind of all at sixes and sevens out of position in that way. But I think if you can win the ball high up with them trying to play out for the back and run out with the ball for the back with our centre halves, then they're all at sea because they're out of position. So it will be interesting to see what way that Robson takes it, to be honest.
Carol, just to come back to you with the front line, Rovers have a lot of options to pick from in terms of going forward. I mean, I think it's probably safe to wager that the only certainty is Dylan Easton being on the pitch, as we know and love, because of the fact that he decided to remain in Kirkcaldy over Dunfermline. But then you look at the alternatives that we've got. Paul McMillan's obviously played the first two games, but then you've got Richard Chin, who's made a very, very impressive start to his life in Kirkcaldy. And even the likes of Lewis Vaughan, Jack Hamilton, both were on the bench for the United game with Hamilton coming on. where would you be looking to sort of utilise the front line? I mean, would you be going for the raw pace of the likes of McMullen and Chin, or what have you made of Chin's performances so far for the Rovers?
I think it's been very impressive. The pace it's pace that we've needed and pace that we've wanted, which is good. It's a difficult one. It's the same thing. Who do you drop to bring someone in? Because I think Vaughan is always going to score against Dunfermline. I think he's up for it. That's what he wants. It's one of those games that you hope he's going to perform at. But then who do you drop? Because do you lose the pace of McMullen up the front? You don't drop Dylan Easton because you need him on. So yeah, I don't envy Robson at all at the moment. Not at all.
Yeah,
I'm not helping with this lineup at all. I know this, but it's so hard.
It's a tough one. It's a very tough one. I mean, yeah, with Chin, I think his performances so far, Barry Robson's definitely got the option there to use him as sort of a wild card, because I don't think, I know that Dunfermline will have scouted him, they'll have scouted the full team, and they'll know what he's all about and where to be able to potentially put pressure on and being able to do that. But yeah, it's just that the explosiveness that he has, and whether you want to maybe switch it up so that you're using Paul McMullen coming off the bench, because Paul McMullen coming off the bench running against tired legs, that's going to be a big factor. You've got Lewis Vaughan, as you say, stellar, best ever Fife Derby record goal scorer. So you've got that in there, and as well, Jack Hamilton being able to offer something different. I feel like with Big Jack Hamilton, he can come on, being able to bully defenders, I think, as well. Being able to go into those battles against your Kyle Benedictus, the likes of Jeremiah Chillico and Mullen, just being able to make them have to worry about that. And then if you potentially got a pacey player off the side and Dylan Easton's pulling off his tricks left, right and centre, then can cause them a bit of a nightmare. So, yeah, what we'll do is we'll move to lineups now. Scott, what's your starting 11 if you were going into this one from your perspective?
Yeah, I've kind of chopped and changed with whilst we've actually been recording what I would go with. I think I would probably go just with the same sort of formation that Robson's been playing, a sort of 3-4-3 or 3-5-2 or whatever you want to call it. It's that sort of formation anyway. So I would just go with Josh Ray in goal, obviously, with the back three, Doherty, Fordyce and Hanlon. I would have Stevenson at left wing back. I'm going to go with J. Rowe at right wing back, but at the same time, I'm absolutely fine if Josh Mullen's still in the team, because I think that he played well down at Ayr. And then I think I would actually, more that I think about it, I think I would go with M3 in midfield again, with Bunn, Brown and Matthews, especially for a game like this where you need to, as we've said, you need to win the midfield battle. Against maybe, I don't know, an Arbroath at home or a Airdrie at home, one of these teams where it's more of a technical game, then you might not need necessarily the three of them in the middle of the park. But we knew it was going to be a battle last weekend down at Ayr, and we went in to win that battle, which we did. So I think it's going to be another battle on Friday night. So I would go with M3. And then it's who do you put with Dylan Easton for me up there, because part of me would like to see Jack Hamilton start, but I also think he just seems to love the sort of chaos factor that McMullen brings in terms of his pace, his energy. He just hassles defenders constantly. His end product's still to be desired yet. He still seems to be somebody that's a bit erratic with that, but he just seems to be the sort of Barry Robson prototype of going harry defenders whilst winning the ball back for us, and we'll get Dylan Easton to then create magic off of that. So I genuinely could see him putting the same 11 straight back out there again, because I mean we've had 2 weeks off, and I mean we've not really made any transfers or anything like that, so I can't see anything changing too much. But if I was going to say that, I think I'm pretty much saying that my only change is probably going to be J Rowe, because I think that he is going to go with that front two again at Easton and McMullen. But I also would like to see Jack Hamilton potentially in there as well, if there's a way of making that work with Easton kind of feeding off his knockdowns.
And for you, Carol, what's your lineup?
Pretty much the same as Scott. It's Mullen and Rowe. I don't know. I might stick with Mullen, just because then it's the element of surprise. Definitely have Matthews, Byrne and Brown, because I think the three of them together just, it's going to sound silly, but frees up Matthews a bit more to be a bit more chaotic further up the field.
Mm-hmm.
He's not having to worry about being technical in the midfield and keeping the ball. He's got a little bit more freedom. It's do you have that madness of McMullen off the bench and start with Hamilton or Vaughan, or do you start with the madness and then have more madness coming on with Hamilton and Vaughan? So yeah, I'm going to stick with the same 11 as there. Make it simple.
Yeah, I would. To be honest, I was looking along the same lines. I think that the big question is whether we go for having J Rowe or whether we go for the experience of Paul or Josh Mullen even in the start 11. It's impossible to tell. Nobody has a clue because nobody expected it before here, and that's part of the fun of talking about this Rovers team and where we're at. For all that Barry Robson gets a lot of flack about the lack of changes and the continuity of this team, shall we say. There is a lot to mull over when you're talking about these sorts of games, and looking ahead to Friday, we're completely in the dark, which, as we said before the air game, and I think it was Blair that might have mentioned it, just means that Neil Lennon, if he gets a team line at quarter to 7 it'll be, I'm guessing, not going to have a clue what's going to be going on in terms of where we're at, not knowing what to expect, if we're going to be going back to a formation or whether we're going to be retaining the same one that we've had against
also,
there.
if we've got likes Vaughan, Hamilton, Chin, I don't know, Gibson, Montague, all these guys on the bench that are sort of artillery, like I can't imagine that Benedictus is going to be going, oh great, Richard Chin's coming on, oh great, Vaughan's coming on, because I think he certainly would. I think he would prefer somebody like a Hamilton where it's going to be more of a battle in the air, but I can just see it would be perfect to see 20 minutes of Richard Chin just running at Kyle Benedictus, because I think that would be comical at times, because I mean Finlay Pollock certainly made it comical last time they came to Starks when Benedictus couldn't catch up with him, and I think Richard Chin's just as fast, if not faster, than Pollock as well. So it'll be interesting to see what Robson does with the squad, and also what sort of subs we've got to bring on if we're needing a goal with 20 minutes to go.
I would be delighted to see Richard Chin or even Paul McMullen as well get their debut goals, well, first goals for Rovers to get off the mark, particularly in a game like this. We've seen it before. I know certainly against the last derby that we had against Dunfermline, Finlay Pollock had missed a series of one-on-ones going into that, and we did say, like, right before that game, like, scoring the derby, nobody's going to be looking back at those and worrying about those. They're going to be talking about you scoring in a derby. So yeah, channel the spirit of that, please. Just a couple of points before we round things off with our customary should McStare, should Dyer go. So going in, they've got the August food bank collection ahead of the derby. So on Friday night, the focus is going to be on tinned fruit and long life juice. So if you're stopping by Morrison's on the way to the game, feel free to pick up a donation, and that'll be readily received. Also as well, Graeme and Allan, their upcoming half marathon for the Rafe Rovers Community Foundation, I believe, they used to help support those children who are potentially looking to be getting season tickets, I believe, for youths. So yeah, they will be doing that coming up. I believe it's this coming weekend. That is the half marathon. And of course, finally, if you've not already got your predictions in for the the upcoming weekend as well. So Blair's organised that. So if you haven't already done that, a reminder to please get those in, so we can keep the numbers nice and high there. Carol has prepared for us this week's Should McStay or Should Dar Go. How many clues are we getting for this one, Carol?
I've got 7.
7. Oof. Right. Now, you promised us an era clue as well, so...
Yeah. So I'll start. I played for a team that has part of its name as a street name in Portugal. Scott's like, I hate you.
Right, question 2.
I forgot that Leslie was doing this.
Street name in Portugal.
It's also a place that is twinned with La Rioja in La Rioja region of Spain.
All right, TripAdvisor, calm down. I mean, I really can't see East Fife being a street name in...
Something to do with metal. I've not even got a guess.
I'll go with Finlay Pollock. I'll keep it topical. Just thinking of Hearts.
Okay.
I mean, obviously it's...
Yeah, I'll wait. I've got not even a Scooby who I would go with.
Okay. This place has also given freedom to the place to peacocks.
Carol, you do remember this is about ex or current Rovers players?
Uh-huh. Yeah. Location is important.
I'm sticking with Finlay Pollock.
Wait, are you saying that this place, this is a place in Portugal still that you're going on about?
No. So part of the name of the team is a street name in Portugal.
Right, okay.
The place, which is part of the team's name, is also twinned with a place in La Rioja, Logroña.
Yeah.
And this place has given freedom to the location to peacocks.
All right.
I mean, that would probably add up with Dunfermline in the Glen, of course, where them stoating about. But I'm sticking with Finlay Pollock.
We're playing them this weekend as well.
Do you want your era clue?
Yeah, because I've not a clue.
I played in one of our cup finals.
Oh, one of the cup finals, right.
Okay. Now I've got a chance.
Jimmy Nicholl.
Okay.
Actually, no, he didn't play in a cup final. Scratch that. Just managed it. He just won the whole thing.
Just controlled it.
Yeah.
Stevie Crawford.
I'll go. I'll just go Ethan Ross.
Okay. According to Wikipedia, including loan spells, I've played for 10 clubs, 452 domestic appearances, and 77 goals.
Right. 10 clubs, 400 odd appearances.
Scored 77 goals. So you'd think they're a forward anyway, with that sort of... They could be midfield, but surely not going to be a defender, because James Tavernier's not played for us. And I can't think of any defenders we've had that have scored one in every 4 games almost. Ten clubs.
Ten clubs, including a loan to Clyde.
including a loan to Clyde.
I don't know if he was ever at Clyde, but I was just starting to think of how many clubs he's been at. Dario Zanata. I don't think he has been at Clyde, but
Well, a wee bit different.
actually, that's just nonsense. He's not scored 77 goals in his career.
Well, I don't know. I'm going to stick with Stevie Crawford. I don't think it is him, but I'm going to stick with him. Because I think we've actually had him before, have we not?
Can't remember the list.
We've had that many games of it now that I've lost count of who we've all had.
Yeah.
Right.
I am English and I was born in Blackpool.
Joe Cardwell?
That's a good shout, actually. Did play in a cup final. Yeah, I think you've got
that. But again, have we had him before?
I don't know. It doesn't matter, does it? What was it?
Final clue, I have an academy in Dunfermline.
There we go. Brilliant. Well done, Carol. And well done, Scott. I was completely flummoxed by that one.
I certainly did not think I was going to be getting that after the first two clues.
Right, so explain what are the first two clues.
So there is a street in... So Dunfermline is twinned with about 6 different cities around Europe. And one of them is a place in Portugal that has a name of the street of Dunfermline. The other place is La Granja that has a whole section on Fife on its government page describing Dunfermline, and also randomly has the next football fixtures. The freedom of the city was given to the Peacocks in March of this year, I think.
In Dunfermline?
Yeah.
But less about that. Let's talk about Rovers winning cup finals and Joe Cardle doing us a good turn. Because let's be honest, nobody really cares about all the stuff. As much as I respect the fact that you've done this, Carol, let's focus on the good bits here. Come on.
Exactly. Yeah.
To be fair, when you said Blackpool, I was like, the only people I know that could have been even in that region was Joe Cardle. That I knew that it came up.
I just went straight to John Herring when I thought of Blackpool. That's my only.
Another
He's
player,
Scottish though.
Another player that played at Blackpool was the lad we had on loan for Rangers, Jordan Thompson. But again, no scored 77 goals in his.
Definitely not. No, that was a really good Should I go? Some player for us, Cardle. I know he was frustrating at points, and I know that a lot got made about the TV aspect of his appearances, but yeah, he did a turn for us, and obviously did a turn for our neighbours as well, but won us a cup, so that helped us on our way. A fun experience to watch your team bodying Rangers in a cup final, which I think only
especially
one of
when you've got somebody like an absolute clown at centre half as well.
Absolutely. But did we beat Dunfermline on the way to winning that cup, didn't we, as well? Because that was the game that Joe Cardle assisted Doogie
that
Hill.
must have been the first round we were in then?
Yeah, and then Liam Fox scored a penalty after Cardle got halved and their fans were raging at him. But
I couldn't tell us that we played Dunfermline in that run. The only games I remember for it was that we beat was it Annan in the semi-final?
Annan in the semi-final. Because the other semi-final was between Rangers and Stenhousemuir, and that hadn't been played. So I think there was a lot of
it was 4 months or something in between the games.
Yeah, but
it might even be longer than that.
There's a reason that I look fondly upon, as probably quite a lot of Rovers fans do, at Easter Road, and that sort of 6-month period where we had 2 visits, with one up one end and the other being up the other end, with Grant Anderson's backward header, and then of course John Baird's goal against Rangers, just made that a very, very happy place. So even watching games, I'll sit there with a wee smile, and yeah, that Kieran Bowie hit last week. Yeah,
that was
Kirkcaldy seems to do well at Easter Road anyway, because Lewis Stevenson certainly had a good career at Easter Road.
Aye, well, that was it. But yeah, just a smile on my face now, reminiscing about that time. But anyway, we have a game on Friday, which of course we will be back with a full post-match debrief, hopefully talking about a win. Otherwise, no doubt there will be bookmarks and clippings, etc., left, right and centre that will be getting patched. Don't worry, they all go into the wee ignore folder on Twitter, so if you're contemplating that, just don't bother. We don't care. And yeah, we will be back with our post-match preview, our post-match review of the game when the time comes. But as ever, thank you for taking the time to listen. Don't hit the unsubscribe button, and we will be back for that. Bye for now.